Stephanie Walsh and Brandon Blanchard first came to Serenbe 11 years ago after a fateful Google search, eco-conscious communities near Atlanta. In the intervening years, they've become integral members of the community, and they both worked at Serenbe. Brandon worked in hospitality for a while, and Stephanie is a sales agent with Serenbe Real Estate. They built a custom home here, renovated another one, moved and lived into every hamlet in the community, and in Serenbe fashion have made lifelong friends. In this episode, Steve and I catch up with Brandon and Stephanie to discuss their mutual love of the outdoors, the new home they're planning to build using the Living Building Challenge as a guideline, and how residents of all ages bond over a shared love of food and organized sports.
So we go and we meet people and we start talking, and then we run into Steve, and he takes us out on the balcony and he says, just look up. And we look up, and every star literally was like on cue, but every star was out, just beautiful. Sky as clear as you can see in the middle of the night. And we both kind of looked at each other and were like, this can't be real.
Welcome back to season 8 of Serenbe Stories. I've got Steve Nygren here, and this is Monica Olson. Hey, Steve, how are you?
I can't believe it's season 8. How fast this time has rolled by.
I know. And today we have a duo with us. We have Stephanie Walsh and Brandon Blanchard, who are married and have lived in the neighborhood for a ton of years. And we thought that they would be a wonderful kickoff to the season. Hi, you guys. How are you?
Hey.
Here.
We're great.
Well. Good to see and hear you.
Yeah, I know. We started really doing everything virtually during COVID, and we've sort of kept it up. As I've said to Steve, we're aspiring to our own podcast studio at some point, but this is always fun. So excited to have you guys both on. And one of the things we always ask, which I'll ask you guys, and you guys can decide who wants to go first, but tell us your story of how you discovered Serenbe and why did you originally move?
I'll let Brandon start.
I think I will probably give you the 2-minute overview and then let Stephanie go into some of the detail. So we've been here a little over 11 years. We lived in Athens, Georgia prior to moving to Serenbe, and my work took me into the Atlanta area. We were looking for a place to live, mostly in the Atlanta, Virginia Highlands area. I needed to be close to an airport and needed to be kind of central-ish into the new territory that I was taking over. So we spent a few months looking at properties in the Atlanta market, and I got a call from Stephanie. And I think I was in Alabama at the time. That whole time period was kind of a blur. But Stephanie called me and said, hey, I found this place. It's pretty awesome. I would love for you to come home now and see it. And I said, okay, well, let me finish my meetings and I'll see what I can do. And she scheduled us. She actually sent me a link and we looked on the website. And this was 11 years ago and the website's a little different now. So I was like, okay, this is really cool looking, but I'm not sure where it is or what it is. So she said, we got to see it. So she booked us a New Year's Eve stay for 2 nights to check it out. And I think this is probably a good segue to Stephanie, and I'll let her take it from here.
Well, the funny thing is that like Brandon said, I wasn't finding what I wanted in town. I was really looking in town because I wanted to be in the walkable community. That was so important to me. What's interesting too about a walkable community in town, Atlanta, is you don't always have everything that you need there. And so you do have to end up driving a lot in Atlanta anyways. And one day I sat down to the computer and I Googled eco-friendly communities near Atlanta. And of course, it was the shortest Google search that I'd ever seen because only one thing popped up, and that was Serenbe. And when I immediately clicked on that, I fell in love. I mean, I was done looking. I looked at the website probably 3 times a day, every day for about 2 months. And the funny thing looking back now, being an agent myself, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit, but we told our agents, I was with them on a trip in Atlanta and I said, I found this place called Serenbe and I want to go look at it. And they said to me, there's nothing for you there. And I said, oh, okay. So I went by myself. Like Brandon said, I came down. It was a very cold 2 weeks before. It was a week before Christmas. It was very cold, very rainy. But the moment I drove in, I knew that we had to be here. You feel different when you drive in. It looks different than anything you've ever seen before. I spent about 2 hours with the sales office, and then, like Brandon said, scheduled us for a New Year's Eve trip. I told them, I said, I'm coming back in 2 weeks with my husband and we are going to buy something. And they said, okay. And we spent two nights here. They took us to parties. We went to the farmhouse for dinner. They told us to go to the hill and ring in the new year. I mean, we got lost on the trails.
We actually, on New Year's Eve, our agent actually said, hey, you guys need to go to this party. And we're like, what party? Oh, it's at this couple's house. I'm like, well, we don't know them. Like, it's okay. You're going to love them. They're going to love you. Go. So we go and we meet people and we start talking. And then we run into Steve and he takes us out on the balcony and he says, just look up. And we look up and every star literally was like on cue, but every star was out, just beautiful, sky as clear as you can see in the middle of the night. And we both kind of looked at each other and were like, this can't be real. And it was.
And I remember Brandon said on January 2nd, like we got up and we went back to the office, and Raina Newell, who's been here for 17 years and works in the office, she literally pointed on a map. How about this lot? What do you think about this one? We went out there and we wrote our check for that lot before we drove home on January 2nd. And we looked at each other and we said, are we doing this? And we said, yes, of course. Why wouldn't we do this? And we knew from the moment we wrote that check that our life was never going to be the same.
And isn't it amazing, the stars, and just connect with nature, and you say, can this be real?
Yep.
And yet it's real for everybody, but we have caused so many things to happen that they don't have access to it. I mean,
that's right.
That's exactly.
That's why you feel so different so quickly when you drive in, because you can feel it.
I just read an article on the Netherlands and why they are rated the happiest people in the world. And one of the 6 things was access to nature.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but I checked a corresponding article then, and we are next to the highest country with depression. And yet we've been building places that forget about stars, forget about trails.
Trees and trails.
You know, nature, which kind of was the final hook, it sounds like.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
The community, but you find the happy people because they have nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got lost on the trails on New Year's Day. You know, I woke up with maybe a touch too much alcohol in my system and said, all right, I'm going to go for a jog on these trails. We walked them very briefly. I want to see what they're all about. And I took a left turn in Albuquerque and wasn't sure where I was. But, you know, usually that makes me a little stressful, a little anxious, but it was honestly so beautiful. It's like, okay, well, let's just keep running and see where I wind up. And I turned a 3-mile run into almost a 7-mile run, but had a great time and came out by the inn and then had a very slow walk back to where we were staying. But I felt so at ease and so comfortable in a place that I'd never been before. And again, as Stephanie mentioned, kind of one of those little boxes that we checked. We're like, yeah, this has to be our place.
And so you guys built that home as your first home, built it from scratch. This is like, I know this little detail about it because we did a story on it. Can you share with the listeners kind of the fun thing that you did when you built the house?
I think you're talking about our bedroom, what we did in our bedroom. Yes. Well, I also...
Let's clarify quickly now.
G-rated.
The G-rated version. No. So we were very fortunate to have the building experience and go through that whole step-by-step process. And we ended up coming here and renting while we were building. So we were here on site, which was wonderful. And we wrote our vows, our wedding vows, on the wall behind our primary bedroom where where our headboard would go. And we had one of our amazingly talented neighbors, Allie Harper, which she goes by for her photography work, shoot us while we were writing our vows on the wall. We did it on the drywall under the paint. So it was very special for us. But one thing we forgot to mention, which is our claim to fame, is that we have lived in every hamlet. And in fact, we've lived in one of them twice. We've lived in Grange twice. We do move around a little bit, but yeah, that was really special in that house. And we had a lot of fun building it. It was a really unique experience to make every choice and finishes. And we really built it for like our lifestyle, but lives change. And again, that's the beauty of Serenbe. You get to move through the stages of your life. And we realized we didn't need a house that large. So now we are downsized into a townhome that we love too, that we've also kind of made our own.
Now, that first house, did you disclose that your wedding vows were back behind the sheetrock?
Yes, that's what we were just saying. Yep. It is one of our little special touches.
Well, and you guys have become known, and maybe I'll set you aside a little bit, Brandon, but Stephanie people will pull her into renovating their places for her and doing work on any kind of subtle remodels and stuff. So tell us a little bit about that. Like, that's sort of like a side passion of yours.
It is. Obviously there's very talented people in the community who are designers and can do, and there's some amazing people. I don't claim to be that, but I do love to see something really ugly and make it beautiful. I think there's something about that envision something from one way to the next. And it kind of has become a little bit of a habitual problem for me. My poor husband has lived through some of those remodels while we were in the home. So we've done that, but I have helped a few people remodel some of their older properties. And like I said, we've lived in every hamlet, but we've also had a couple of investment properties that we have remodeled. And it's always been fun. I kind of learned to speak contractor language, and that's always unique.
And let's use that as a good segue into real estate. So you work for Serenbe Real Estate as an agent, but when you came here, that wasn't just sort of like myself. Everybody's like, did Steve find you when you moved? Or did you live here? And I'm like, no, you move in and then somehow the
things
Serenbe
find you.
Vortex finds a place for you. So tell us a little bit about real estate, because, that sort of renovation work, that sort of having the vision and eye of what could be done on a home, I think is really rare.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely, it's everything that I do is in that realm now. I started out when I came to Serenbe, my background was in nonprofit. My entire career had been in nonprofit work, and it was where all my passion was. But what's interesting about working Serenbe Real Estate is that we are real estate agents. We're trained and qualified agents, but we feel much more like ambassadors. We truly are ambassadors to the community. And I think that's what happens is the team sees someone in the community that is so in love with Serenbe and speaks so much to the ethos of what we do in this community. And then they recruit them to be a part of the team. And it's such a wonderful opportunity to walk to work every day, to take people on tours in golf carts. And really all day long, all you do is spend time talking about something that you love so much. And you're outdoors, you're in nature, you're surrounded by nature during that job. So I feel sorry for all the other real estate agents in the world. And I think we truly have a really wonderful experience here. I actually started with Serenbe Real Estate in 2014 and spent 2.5, almost 3 years there, and then took a little sabbatical to grow into my position a little better. I actually took a year off for myself during that time. And then I returned to be a part of the team in 2021. And it is one of the best, most wonderful experiences of my life.
I mean, I think that the sort of idea that the team has of like, everybody needs to live here, live in the community, is sort of a unique one. Not that agent expertise, say in Virginia Highland, they obviously have a deep bench in that area, but they might live in a different neighborhood. And so I think being able to really share why and how and have an honest pro and con conversation with somebody is pretty rare.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I think is I do love the golf cart. I don't do real estate, but I see everybody out on the weekends and, in the golf cart, and I just like get so excited because I'm like, who are they taking now? Who's coming in? Who's going to be my new neighbor? Okay. So Brandon, tell us about you. You came out of hospitality. You're still in hospitality. You were in Athens. Tell us a little bit about that. And then I really want to talk about Heritage Supper Club, what you're doing now, because I'm a big fan as well. So give us your whole background and.
Sure. Well, thank you for saying that. So I spent almost 20 years in the corporate hospitality world. We were in Athens, Georgia for almost 7 years, transitioned into Serenbe and left the corporate world. I was working with Outback Steakhouse as a regional director of operations. left that to join a startup company called Grubburger, which I worked with for about 3 years as a market partner there. I loved Outback. I learned so much from that company. They were an incredible leader in the industry when it came to culture and training and leadership development. And really, that's what I focused a lot of my career path towards, is how can I affect change, and how can I help elevate people to hopefully help them achieve their dreams. As in any case, you reach a summit and you're looking for something else. And I was working with Grubburger and traveling probably close to 200 days a year. And I miss my wife, love our pets, love our small family. And it was not the quality of life that I was looking for. And certainly one of the reasons we moved to Serenbe was because of that quality of life that you felt right when you came onto property. And I had another compelling issue that was itching at me. And that was, although the startup company had great intentions, we were feeding unhealthy food to an unhealthy nation. And that really started eating at me. And the more and more that I lived here, the more I understood the importance of having a healthy mind, a healthy body, and really doing things to put yourself into a frame of mind where you felt happy, right? And a happy person is a more helpful person. So I decided to resign from that position. I remember calling Stephanie from Tallahassee, Florida, and saying, "Hey, honey, I'm coming home tomorrow." And she said, "Oh, great." And I said, "Well, I quit my job." And she's like, "You what?" I was like, "I'm sorry, you're breaking up. I've got bad reception. I'll call you on the way home." And of course, stopped at the florist. And of course, as soon as I got home, she was, extremely supportive. And we said, "Okay, well, we'll figure out what the next steps are." And then, within a matter of weeks, Garni reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you like to get involved in hospitality here?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. I take a stroll to work, take a golf cart to work instead of a plane or an automobile. Absolutely." And it was such an amazing experience. I think, what I appreciated most was the closeness to a true mission and vision that I felt working with Steve and with Garni. When you work in the corporate world, you're a little bit separated from what the owners or the visionaries were trying to conceive, right? And here you are completely immersed in it. And I felt that from day one. I felt the support from day one. And so it was a really influential time in my life to be able to work with people who knew exactly where they wanted to go, why they were doing it, and how they were going to get there. So I spent 3 years working here, running hospitality. I think we made some strong headways and grew some people into roles that I think they never thought they were capable of, and created an environment where everyone felt comfortable and welcomed and appreciated and valued. And that's really what I cared about most, because I think if you hire the right people and you train them the right way and treat them the right way, everyone's going to find success, right? So I did that for 3 years. And after 30 years in the industry, and I think Steve can probably attest to this, there's a little bit of crazy in your head and you need to step away a little bit. So I, like Stephanie did, took a sabbatical to clear the mind and determine what the next stage in my life was going to look like. And honestly, no better place to do it than in Serenbe. So I did that. And 3 months into that sabbatical, I had a couple friends reach out that were investors in a restaurant that needed some help. And so my consulting practice started about 9 months early. And I had a great time working with small businesses, individual chefs that were looking to open their first restaurants, and really creating some strategic plans, some cultural tenets that needed to be in place to allow those businesses and those people to be successful. Then obviously COVID hit and I was able to take the rest of my sabbatical. Yeah, that's right. That's right. We all have a couple of great stories that align with COVID, but coming out of it now, I've started working with a young chef named Demetrius Brown and Heritage Supper Club. So he is my most recent client. He's a phenomenal young African-American chef who is really changing the scope of elevated cuisine in the Southeast. And he is taking an approach where he is fusing dishes and flavors from the African diaspora and the Caribbean and fusing it with new American cuisine. So we're getting these really elevated takes on what is commonly known as street food or casual dining food, and really bringing awareness to the amazing flavors of the Caribbean and of Africa, of Latin America. And we are hopefully closing in on our first brick and mortar this summer. So very, very
That's
exciting.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I've had the great pleasure of dining on his incredible food, not only as a pop-up that you've been doing. So like people should definitely, we'll put in the show notes, people should look for any upcoming pop-ups if you have any. But then also I was able to hire him for my brother's birthday here, which was
That's
so
right.
fun. And he, such a professional. I mean, I was so shocked. Like he kind of brings everything down
Yep.
to the linens, which
That's right.
I can't wait to go to the restaurant. Can you share it all where you're looking?
Not
I know there might be
quite yet.
negotiations.
I can tell you where we're looking. We are
Okay.
looking in the Inman Park area. Obviously, for the first concept, we want a very densely populated, well-established area.
Definitely.
And we're identifying some spots there, and hopefully we'll get something closed soon. But one thing I will share also that's, again, unique and is kind of the kismet effect of Serenbe is I originally worked with Demetrius at the Hill. So when I was running hospitality, I hired him at the Hill to be the executive sous chef to Patty, who is the chef de cuisine when we reopened. And years later, my first consulting client was the Pinewood, and Demetrius had applied for the executive chef position there, came in and cooked for the investor and one of the managers. And I said, we can probably forego this because he's extremely talented. You're going to want him on the team. And so we hired him on, and he immediately turned that kitchen into a high performing, incredible place to work and eat. And then, obviously after COVID, he reached out to me and said, hey, I want to start my own business. I want to have my first restaurant opened of several. Would you want to go into business with me? And I said, absolutely. When you find somebody young and driven and passionate, you want to do everything you can to support that person. And I'm fortunate to be in a position to do that, and wouldn't have been if it wasn't for this wonderful community.
I love all of the weaving of people together because that's exactly the kind of part of the joy of it.
Yeah, but I love the connections. There's something about the hospital. You're working odd hours, and families, sort of sub-families happen. And that's a big story of that. Yeah, I get stories still on the peasant restaurants. The relationship, the businesses, the romances. I think it's a little more unique in the hospitality than other places. Love that.
That's very true.
Brandon and I actually met at Outback Steakhouse.
That's right.
Oh, I didn't know
That's
that
right.
part of your story.
Yeah.
Yep. On a whim in a very random location in Florida.
Yeah, she actually picked Jacksonville, Florida out of a hat one night with her cousin and her aunt, and then put it back in and said, can I do best 2 out of 3? And her aunt, who I love to this day and will love forever, said, nope, that's what you picked. That's where you got to go. And that's where we met.
God, that's so fun.
Yeah, I was headed to Florida for a summer getaway between my post-college work and heading into my master's program. And I was only supposed to be there for a few months, and it turned into 4 years because I met Brandon.
Oh, I love that. So one of the things that is super exciting is you guys are once again in the process of building a house. I think very early stages.
Very early.
Tell us about that. And I think one of the sort of visions for that is really trying to optimize for like a healthy home, maybe a net zero, net positive home. And I believe that's sort of part of the inspiration to build again. But whoever wants to start first, I really want to dig into this because this is also something fascinated by.
I'll start. It's something we're very passionate about. I mean, obviously, since one of the main ways I found Serenbe was Googling, eco-friendly communities. It's always been really important to us to live as sustainably as possible. And I think every stage of your life, you're looking at ways that you can improve on that. And of course, we want to think about that in the way that we live. And one thing that happened when we sold our other home and downsized is that we realized how much we liked living in a smaller space. And so that is something we're going to replicate. We bought what is called a farmette, which is basically some acreage that is connected to Serenbe, part of Serenbe, that you actually go through a trail system to access it. And part of it is thinking about the future of wanting to be able to grow some of additional food for ourselves too, but also to have a very sustainable home. We've actually always lived in geothermal since we've moved here, used geothermal heating and cooling, and we love that. We will add solar panels. We will have no gas in our home. It'll be
which
electric.
I love. I'm a huge believer. We have an old house that has lots of gas in it, but I would love to figure out how to get rid of it all.
Yeah. And it's definitely something that we talked about. And it's hard because we're all, as people who love to cook and love your ranges and how the gas works, and you get
gas fireplace.
Yep. And we actually want to have a wood burning stove instead of a traditional fireplace because it's much more efficient. And then we've been looking into additional ways to handle water, things that we can do with recycling water. Because one of the things I love about Serenbe is the gray water system, the recycling waste system. So hoping that there's a way that we can incorporate that. The living building challenge, which is something that the school is doing and is a little bit, I mean, it's hard no matter what, but it seems like it works better for commercial. So I don't know if we'll go full for residential, but we will definitely pull pieces of that. And that, to me, the investigating and research that I've done into that is it's even further than your Earthcraft. It's even further than your LEED certification. And it's really getting into where everything comes from, who builds your home.
What's in the materials.
Yeah, what's in the materials. And that's really important to us too. And waste. Like, I really want to think about the waste that's used for our build. So we still have land, which is why we haven't broken ground yet. It gets a little stressful as you start to think about all of those different things. But I think we're both very excited. We are actually in design process, starting that in the next couple of months.
I think in seeing what the Acton model is doing as far as the build out of the school, we were extremely fascinated by that. Both Stephanie and I have taken trips to the Candida building at Georgia Tech from a living building challenge perspective and want to use that as a template, right? There are obviously 7 petals to the living building challenge for a zero or net positive carbon footprint. And, you know, as we've grown, our values and what's important to us have changed. And this is one of, if not the most important thing that we both feel we can affect and hopefully be a model for other people who build their homes and doing some of that quote unquote dirty work to determine what can we source locally, what can be used that is, you know, has the structural integrity to support a home for a long period of time, because homes used to be built to last a long, long time. We want to be able to capture that, but also do that using resources that are nearby. So obviously reducing that carbon footprint even more.
And we know, like, it's a privilege to even be thinking about these things, to have the opportunity to think about this stuff. So we also want to make sure that we do it in a very economical way too. Like, we don't want to spend a ton of money to make, we want to show how this can be done in a very economical way too, because it is a privilege to have this, but we want to be able to help people replicate that process.
I think, I mean, I've sort of volunteered myself to marketing to sort of help document, because I think it's so important. You really do sometimes need really passionate people to see a little bit further out before more people are comfortable with it, because they need proof of concept. And obviously the Candida building is incredible and we've all visited, but
it's next level.
It's next level.
It's next level.
Well, with Candida, you found out it was more expensive because of where they had to do it, right in the center of the city, where they different many things required that are already standard practice at Serenbe. Have you read the summary Phil did on biophilic design for the school for one of the petals?
I have not, no.
No, I would love to read that.
We'll share that with you guys.
Okay.
It's incredible.
Because what most of that is just standard things that are already at Serenbe, and you could pull that, your house would fit that. The other thing, remind me, we have someone who's developing the hemp blocks for houses, and they're coming to Serenbe. They're scheduling a time. So send me a note and I'll make sure that when they come, we bring you in. I don't know if you've read or done some work on the hemp blocks.
Yeah, I have looked into that quite a bit. that's the thing that I think is holding us back a little bit, is just thinking about materials, because there's so many options, and one thing may fit this need, but it may not. It may be from far away, but it may be more sustainable, or it may be better to keep your house tighter, but it might not be as really sustainable for the environment. So those are the things that are, you kind of start digging down and you go down these rabbit holes, and you're like, everything I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it all. Like, and what is the right answer? And sometimes it's more than one answer, really. And you just have to pick the option that works best for you. We want to have a low impact, be able to build this home and have a lower impact. But also, I secretly have a dream of, I'd like to build it myself. And I mean, technically, Brandon, I said this.
Brandon's face is looking very confused.
I would like
but this home?
have a builder, but I would love to work with every contractor at each stage and do some part of it with my own hands. Like, I would like to do some of the framing with my own hands. I would like to do some of the plumbing with my own hands. I want to experience each. I wish I was good enough to be able to build my own home, but I'm not. But I would like to be a part of it.
I love that.
So,
switching it up just a tiny bit, because one of the things that, when you guys moved here, when we moved here, there really wasn't any organized sports or teams or groups. I mean, we had tennis courts and we have a field, we have a dog park, we have a basketball court. Steve put in these amenities, bocce, but not to say that they were dormant, but you would be up there maybe with a couple people. Now you could go up to the field on a Saturday and there's 80 people and another 40 kids.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about your sports.
Yeah.
Are you?
Wait,
I'm sorry.
Brandon.
Are you talking about how my husband letters in every sport in Serenbe?
Oh my goodness.
Yes, I've been joking about this forever, that I'm gonna get him a Letterman jacket and put like
Letterman jacket,
a big S on it,
and put a big S on it, and get him like the football one, the soccer.
You can get all the the stripes.
Go ahead.
I just ordered my son's Letterman, so I have a resource for you.
Nice.
I'll be getting him that.
Yeah, it's such a great topic though, because when we moved here 11 years ago, it wasn't very common to find people to go throw the football with, or kick a soccer ball with, or play basketball with.
Well, you just wouldn't have enough to make a team.
That's right. And so as the community has grown, which was the original intention, that's why those amenities were there. And now people are using them. And I think it's a wonderful way to connect with community and connect with neighbors that maybe you wouldn't see on a regular basis. So playing football on Saturday mornings, or soccer on Sunday mornings, or basketball at very random times throughout the week, or tennis, you're connecting with community members that you wouldn't otherwise see or spend time with. And so to me, that's a great way to fill myself with joy, and hopefully them too, maybe in some cases not so much, but to create this kind of bond over something, right? Besides where we live, right? And where we live is amazing, but there are other ways to meet and connect. And to me, this is one that I haven't had. And Steve can attest to this. When you work in hospitality, your hours are very strange. They're long. So when you have some downtime, you're typically resting or spending it with your closest friends and family. Having this network of folks that are into these types of activities allows me to meet people and make new friends that I haven't really done in decades. So that to me is the biggest win, is I get to hang out with people that normally I wouldn't have time to get involved with. And it's fun. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun. And maybe we think we're younger than we are. That may be the case in some cases. But hey, who doesn't want to live those memories out a little bit?
Santa brought a gift certificate to the physical therapist to Brandon's stocking this year.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm going to need several more.
It's not easy to get in with that physical therapist. They're in such demand these days because of these guys out there on the field.
Thanks to the Serenbe athletic fields.
That's right.
And these aren't just spontaneous games. I mean, this has gotten kind of organized.
Absolutely. So obviously right now we have organized softball and kickball. And then we have text threads with groups of people that play basketball or football or soccer. And we're constantly adding people to those threads. In fact, I think with soccer, there was so much interest that we had to create a WhatsApp, because on an iPhone, you can only do 27 people or something like that to a text thread. So we had to do a WhatsApp thread so that we can get everybody on there and keep adding people. And so just as an example, we started playing soccer a few months ago, I think I came in a couple months after they started, and we were 4-on-4, 5-on-5, 6-on-6. This past Sunday, it was 11 versus 11. We had a full squad on both sides and had a substitute for each team. That's how much interest there is now, right? It's really neat to see how that grows, or has grown over time and continues to grow.
But it also highlights something about Serenbe that's really unique, is that all different, particularly in this, and you see it in other things that people are a part of, but all different groups are a part of this. So you're playing soccer with somebody that's 10, 15 years younger than you.
20.
You're 20 in some cases. Okay. We're not that old. But but also people that have kids that are young. We do not have children. But that was one thing, and this highlights it. That was one thing that we were very attracted to when we first moved to Serenbe, that we found so different than other communities that we had lived in, is that you could be friends with people across different parts of their life, different interests, because Serenbe doesn't separate you. It brings you together instead of pulling you apart, because it doesn't silo you into these different groups. And I think this is one way that it happens. Other ways that it happens are with the art farm events, with the dinner culinary events, yes, of course, if you're a mother and you have young children, there are plenty of mom groups here that are going to support you. But I've got friends who have young kids. I have friends whose kids are going off to college. It's so lovely, because it helps you have people in your life that you may not have originally been able to have in your life. And I think it gives you a well-rounded experience.
Just to quickly add on to that, because that was something that when I think about Serenbe and what I'm most grateful for, obviously this sense of community and this sense of place is so prevalent, and at least it's hit Stephanie and I very hard, and we're just embracing it with both arms. But I never in my life would have thought I would have close connections with people 20 to 30 years older than me and 20 to 30 years younger than me. So when I play sports, there's a lot of guys in their early 30s, if not late 20s. And I'll also go golfing with a couple of guys that are in their mid 70s. And I have very close connections with both groups. And never in my life had I had access to that before. And it has allowed me to learn and grow as a person, share stories, learn. It's a wonderful experience that I don't think people find very often in their lives, let alone in a community every day.
Well, we haven't talked about the golf cart tailgating culture that also happens at these.
That's very true. That's
at the Turkey Bowl, the football.
We started the Turkey Bowl, 11 years ago. Rob Pridich, a former resident that anyone who knows that name has several stories to share. But we started the Turkey Bowl, I believe it was 11 years ago. And it started with anyone who is willing to go on the field can play. And so I think we had 16 people the first year, men, women, children, and everyone was involved. And then it grew to 20, 30, 40 people, grew into 4 teams. But I think what's most fun is this tailgate contest / party that has evolved from it, where a group of us will go and collect some gifts from the lovely retail spaces in Serenbe who donate them. And we have a party, and whoever has the best tailgate golf cart wins X, Y, and Z from the Daisy or the Hill or Creek Retreat or Hamlin. I'm sure there's several I'm forgetting, and I apologize. But such a unique experience. And then it's also involved into a national anthem being played and a halftime show. We've kind of, done it up pretty well. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's fun. Everyone looks forward to it.
And how many were on the field this last year? I mean, a lot of people.
Yeah, last year was actually 4 teams, because so many people were interested. And I would say we probably had close to 200 people on the field, if you include all of the spectators and the tailgaters. I mean, it was pretty remarkable, especially to see where it came from.
Well, that's a good lead up into what is usually our final question is somebody's visiting Serenbe for the first time. What would you tell them to do? Where would you have them go? Besides, of course, buy a house, Stephanie.
Of course.
What's sort of that thing that you guys love or you think is sort of an undiscovered great thing to go do?
Well, I mean, this is not undiscovered, but this is what I tell people to do all the time is to sit at the bars at the restaurant and to walk the streets and talk to people, because we as community members are so happy being a part of this community that we're going to talk to everybody. And it takes people a little while to get used to that. But I think to really understand what it means to live here, you have to talk to the people that are a part of it, because there are so many things. I mean, technically the thing that Brandon and I love, really what attracted us, one of the number one things that attracted us and what we love the most is nature. And we love that access to be in the woods. And I know for sure I'm in the woods every day. Brandon's probably in the woods almost every day. And I always want people to go out on the trails and experience that, because you just don't have that in your backyard anywhere else. But I think having that interaction with the community members, because everything that makes up Serenbe is what makes it wonderful, but the community members are truly the heart and soul of Serenbe. That's what keeps it beating. So I think if you can talk to everybody and find out what it's really like to be a part of it, then that's where you'll fall in love the most. And then, of course, I tell them to walk the labyrinth and think about what house they want to buy.
Yeah. So having worked in hospitality here and having worked at the wine shop on several occasions, you meet so many folks that aren't Serenbe residents, and they're always enamored by how happy everyone seems to be. Everyone seems to wave, and there's just this energy here that people can't explain. And it's all because of who we are as a people and how comfortable we all feel. And to me, that is one of the more remarkable things about the community. Is it's not about who you are or what you do. It's, hey, we're a community. We're here together. Let's help each other in any way possible. And I've never felt that sense of community anywhere before. As far as what somebody has to do, to me, it's the trails. It's the trail system. It's not a unique thing, but there are so many different aspects of the trails, whether it's grandfather tree or the waterfall or the ruins. I mean, I can name several more. Every route you take is different and brings a different outlook. And there's such a sense of peace and belonging when you're there, when you're inside the trees and the nature encompasses you, that makes you feel real. And, to me,
that's great.
That's something that you just can't get access to. I've always liked hiking, but I've never been able to just walk out my door and take 20 steps and be in a trail system. And so to me, that's just remarkable. And anybody who's looking at buying here, I would, or coming here to visit here, you got to go on the trails, got to go, whether it's by horse or by foot.
Yeah. I love it. That's good.
Love the conversation and love having you all as part of Serenbe, your energy and your fingerprints that are on various parts of it through the years. So thanks for sharing your voice this morning and sharing what Serenbe means to you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Monica.